3, Stage 6, Lesson 76. Suppose thirst. Suppose thirst. What do you suppose would happen if there were suddenly no water in the world? What do you suppose happen if there were suddenly no water in the world?
I suppose we'll all die if there was no water in the world.
Supposing today were Sunday, where would you be now? Supposing today were Sunday, where would you be now?
Supposing today were Sunday, I'll be in my house.
Notice that after the verb suppose, we use the subjunctive conditional tense because the sentence expresses a supposition. Supposing today where? What tense do we use after the verb suppose? What tense do we use after the verb suppose?
We use the subjunctive after the verb suppose.
And why?
Because the sentence expresses a supposition.
Hotter and hotter, more and more. Hotter and hotter, more and more. Does it become hotter and hotter as we go towards the north of Europe? Does it become hotter and hotter as we go towards the north of Europe?
No, it doesn't become hotter and hotter as we go towards the north of Europe, but it becomes colder and colder.
Do people usually become richer and richer as they become older? Do people usually become richer and richer as they become older?
Yes, people usually become richer and richer as they go older.
And why?
Because they usually earn more and more money.
And does good wine usually become cheaper and cheaper as it becomes older? Does good wine usually become cheaper and cheaper as it becomes older?
No, good wine doesn't usually become cheaper and cheaper as it becomes older, but it usually becomes more and more expensive.
Ready. How long does it take you to get ready to go out to work in the morning? How long does it take you to get ready to go out to work in the morning?
It takes me about an hour to get ready to go out in the morning.
When do you think you'll be ready to take the exam at the end of this book? When do you think you'll be ready to take the exam at the end of this book?
I think I'll be ready to take the exam at the end of this book in about 3 weeks' time.
Very good. Are you always ready to lend people money? Are you always ready to lend people money?
Yes, I'm always ready to lend people money.
Also, as well, to. Also, as well, to, whereabouts.
Whereabouts.
The words also, as well, and to all mean the same thing, but their place in a sentence is different. The word also usually goes between the subject and the verb, whilst the words as well and to usually go at the end of the sentence. So, whereabouts in a sentence do the words also, as well, and to usually go? Whereabouts in a sentence do the words also, as well, and to usually go?
The word also usually goes between the subject and the verb, while the words as well and to usually go at the end of the sentence.
Very good. Can you give me some examples, please?
He also speaks French, but he speaks French as well. He speaks French too.
Describe, description, just.
Describe, description, just.
Very good. Describe someone you know, please, of your family or friends, one of your friends or your family, please. Describe someone you know, please, one of your family or your friends.
I'll describe my uncle. My uncle is very tall, he's very thin, he's the youngest in my parents. He's younger than my parents. He has blue eyes.
Very good. Now, could you please describe the place where you live?
Sure. The place where I live is an apartment in a building inside a condo. It's medium size. We have 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, kitchen, living room, and dining room. It's in a residential neighborhood. There are some stores around. It's kind of pretty.
Okay, thank you very much. Now, what are you doing? What are you doing?
I'm describing the place where I live.
Do you good enough description? Do you think it's a good enough description?
Yes, I think it's a good enough description.
Very good. Whom. Whom. The word who is the subject of a verb, whilst for the object of a verb we use the word whom. For example, in the sentence, who is speaking to you, the word who is the subject of the sentence, whilst the word you is the object. In the sentence, to whom are you speaking, the word whom is the object, whilst the word you is the subject. That is the person who is doing the action. So, what's the difference between the words who and whom?
The difference between the words who and whom is that who is the subject of a verb, whilst for the object of a verb we use the word whom.
Give me an example of each, please.
We're going to speak Chinese here, and to whom are you giving this book?
Very good. The word whom is very little used in conversation. Instead of saying to whom are you speaking, we nearly always say who are you speaking to? Because it is easier to say, although it is not really grammatically correct. So what do we generally say instead of to whom are you speaking? What do we generally say instead of to whom are you speaking?
We generally say who are you speaking to instead of to whom are you speaking.
And why?
Because it's easier.
Very good. Now, as soon as over. As soon as over. What did you do as soon as you came into the classroom? What did you do as soon as you came into the classroom?
I sat down as soon as I came into the classroom.
What will you do as soon as the lesson is over? What will you do as soon as the lesson is over?
I'll stand up, go home, and have dinner as soon as the lesson is over.
Very good. When you lend anything like money, for example, do you prefer the other person to give it back on a certain date or just as soon as possible? When you lend anything like money, for example, do you prefer the other person to give it back on a certain date or just as soon as possible?
When I lend anything like money, for example, I prefer the other person to give it back to me as soon as possible.
Strange.
Who's
the strangest person you know? Who's the strangest person you know?
A friend of mine is the strangest person I know.
Okay, thank you. End of lesson 76.